Hi, I'm Haley Helveston. I'm a relationship coach. Today on GoTarryn TV, we are going to be talking about the loneliness epidemic.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. And as you can see side by side, we are welcoming back relationship coach Haley Helveston, also out of Atlanta, Georgia. Haley, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
We're happy to have you and always excited that you're here to help us out on relationships, sexuality coaching, everything like that. So you had mentioned at the beginning here before the bumper intro something called the loneliness epidemic. Is that what we're going to be talking about today?
Yes, definitely. So one thing I've noticed with people nowadays is that the more we're on technology, it's caused an increase of social isolation, and that's caused people to be more lonely.
Interesting. Definitely a correlation there. So I guess into expounding upon that, do you see that as a negative thing, or does it have some advantages or disadvantages? How are we looking at this too, the whole spectrum?
I think it should be a wake-up call for people to realize, oh, okay, so yes, technology is amazing. There's so many benefits, but it should also be hey, okay, so I need to be doing stuff more in person with people instead of just sitting on my phone after work.
Yeah, good point, because one thing I was going to bring up, and you mentioned that when people are on their phone, they kind of get isolated into that. But even if a couple, let's say, is on a date and they're both there at the table waiting on their food, most likely, we see it all the time, they're each on their phone and just kind of... Is that something that you see as troublesome and problematic, or what's your thoughts on that when you see something like that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that people are addicted to their phones. And listen, I'm bad about it too. So I think that it's a big issue. But think about it, even in terms of sexually, what's the first thing you check in the morning?
Oh, yeah, your phone, right?
You check your phone.
Yep. Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's a problem.
Yeah. So we see that a lot, and so again, if we did some studies, we might show that over the years, more technology is advanced, then the greater the number of people falling into the trap of loneliness. So what are some solutions that you see? I mean, we are in the technology era, and internet and social media is getting bigger than ever. There's more smart apps available. What are some of the steps that you might suggest that we could take? And it might start early in the morning. Is that one thing we could look at? Maybe how we change our habits.
Yes, I brought this up the other day on my Instagram that I think people could do more stuff in person.
Yeah.
Even if you're working or whatever, maybe you work remote, then twice a week you make an effort to get with girlfriends, get with your guy friends, and hang out with them. Or do a date night. A lot of couples, they're so busy they don't do that.
Yeah, they get tied up, and I hear it a lot too, Haley, that some of my clients, instead of a date night, they'll ask, hey, did you see that thing on Netflix? We're going to binge watch this tonight, or what have you. And I don't know. I mean, that kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, that maybe we're just stuck and isolated, and we're getting trapped into that, they call it blue light epidemic too, where people are just looking at whether it's a phone, TV screen, computer, iPad, so many things that they could just be looking. And I'm guilty of it, I'm not going to lie. I've always got my phone out first thing. Haley, also, there's a few other things that I thought was really interesting from the Instagram thing that you tweeted to me. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about as I'm going to go through this, one study had said 40% of the U.S. total population is to be projected to be diagnosed with diabetes in 2030. That's scary. That's almost like 10 years away. We're saying that almost half, 40% of the U.S. population to be diagnosed with diabetes in 2030. So, I mean, layman's terms and common sense people look at that, and that's pretty shocking. But what do you foresee, by 2030, it's 10, 11 years away. How big of a problem is that we're looking at if things continue to go this way?
I mean, that's a huge issue, and I think that it's It's because of, this is what I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about too, is like America, we're so fast paced. We're so in our masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it done. I don't care. Let's stop at Chick-fil-A. Let's get the work done.
Yeah.
That you don't even, we don't even care how we do it. We just want to get the work done, make more money, and in this endless cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We're very, in this country, impulse oriented, I think, and like more is better, consumption based. Just look at everything. We want things bigger and better, and it's amazing how things are. And with that stat with diabetes, that is very scary. Obviously, I'm in the fitness industry, and my job is to hope that we reverse that trend. But some other trend that I noticed that was on that stat that you also said by 2030 was that researchers were claiming that loneliness would be a human epidemic by that date as well, too. So now we're tying it back to what we originally were discussing here. So that's a pretty powerful word, too, by 2030 saying it's going to be a human epidemic, meaning that it's going to be a big mass problem. So, how do you see that, too, Haley? Is that a correlation also? Maybe even that goes along with people getting in worse shape, like diabetes or gaining weight, becoming more morbidly obese?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that, if you're emotionally eating, when you're lonely, those are definitely comorbid. Yeah, I mean, when I saw those numbers too, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because that's, years away. We can still do something about that.
Good point. Yeah, it's not like next year. It's 9 or 10, 11 years, so you're right. We could do things to change that. And then another third stat by 2030 was what I just mentioned, that 50% of the U.S. population is projected to be obese. Now, that to me, that's pretty scary there. I mean, we're talking half the population. So 50% meaning obese. So in other words, we're talking 30% body fat composition, over 30 on BMI, body mass index. So that's unbelievable. I mean, I have trouble believing that stat, but then again, I'm like, you know what? When you look out there and you go people watching, it's not hard to believe, I guess, is it?
Yeah, definitely. And then that all goes back to the fact that we're so busy and we don't take time to, meal prep, plan our meals, and just be conscious of what we're eating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. And some other things that I thought was really interesting too. This is tying why the human diet is so important and having human connection and such. And you're doing a great job tying it together and connecting it. But some of the things that it said about future thinking, one of them, I'll just go ahead and read it word for word. It said there's going to be an exponential leap in biotech that may allow us to swallow mini robots that go inside our body to detect early signs of issues and help solve it with a pill. What's your thoughts on that one right there? That's pretty interesting there as well.
Yeah, my friend that posted that, I thought that was very interesting, and I thought that, I don't know, it's hard to imagine, right?
Definitely. It's like science fiction, almost like a movie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if it can actually help people, that would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also it's, I think that all goes back to laziness, though. Like, let's just go to the basics, and you don't have to go that far of swallowing a mini robot.
Well, it's funny because as a personal trainer, I always hear the joke, and they say, Amazon, with as big as they're getting, they're closing down everything and competing with all the retailers are scared of them. It's not going to be that long until they have Amazon robotic personal trainers that are going to eliminate people like me. So I don't know. I'm with you. I hope that people will, and that's a problem there. I mean, not to go off a tangent, but if people were to actually be replacing personal trainers with robots, my thought is you lose that human connection, that human personal touch. A robot can't do things that humans can in terms of being a personal trainer or like what you do in relationship coaching. They might be intelligent with artificial intelligence, but it's nothing like you and I provide. It's not the same kind of human personal connection. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. And I also think that there's so many things that like the robots will never be able to do.
I think that's why people like you and I, we shouldn't be that necessarily concerned. I think that if we're doing our best, and not competing with robots, but rather competing with ourselves, then I think that keeps us on track. That's a good point, Haley. And then another thing here was, I'll read the second one. It says wearables will be advanced enough to act like a doctor on hand, and it says literally. So in other words, I guess we've got our smart Apple Watches or what have you, Fitbits and things that people wear. What do you think about that one? The fact that they would actually possibly replace doctors or be a physician on hand, basically, like a doc in the box that you wear.
I think that's a cool idea, but the thing is again, are people going to listen?
Mm-hmm. And also, like you said too, like why let it get to that point too? I'm of the belief, why let yourself get obese or have diabetes and have to go to the doctor? Why not start now and do preventative maintenance? That's very, very important. Much agreed. And then finally, it says number 3, researchers say that in the next 10 years, artificial intelligence will be able to share our intelligence and emotions. Maybe they'll be our friends? ? What do you think about that one? That's interesting.
I know. I hope she was kidding. I don't really like that.
That is scary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing because, bringing this back to what you specialize in with, relationship counseling, sacred sexuality, getting in touch with our inner spirit. Like, for example, and I'll use this, I guess, as a thing that most people can relate to. People are very, very lonely, and they might actually, in Japan, they have robotic girlfriends, and you've probably seen it. Yeah, exactly. So with something like that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that, that they can actually replace the human touch or human experience. What do you think of something, and that's coming here to the States, too, that they're advertising. They call it the GFE, the girlfriend experience, where it's a robot, and you can order her how you want her, or him, I guess, it depends, and put the parts together however you want. But again, as far as that emotional intelligence, being able to share that kind of experience, what do you think on that? That to me is really weird. That's very interesting.
I'm very against that, to be honest. I don't think that solves the root problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's like giving someone an antidepressant instead of saying, hey, let's figure out why you're depressed.
Good analogy.
I think I'm just think that's crazy. I mean, obviously, I think some men, that are in sexless marriages, I think they'd be for it. But again, you're never going to be able to replace that intimacy and connection with your partner. Come on.
Yeah, much agreed. There, you just said something too interesting, Haley. So I get this a lot, and again, in confidence. So obviously, I wouldn't share clients' names or reveal identity, but I do hear, especially from men, more so that they are in sexless marriages and sexless relationships. So my question, Haley, would it be possible for them still to be happy and healthy if they're not getting, I guess, that release or that human personal experience for those guys that have that in their lives right now?
Yes, I definitely think it's possible, but I mean, I do think that they can still work on their relationship, I've met couples like that, and the problem is a lot of times the woman doesn't want to do anything about it.
Interesting.
But my thing is, if the woman was having great sex, she'd want to be doing it, right?
No, that's a good point, too. It's a two-way street. Yeah, that's very, very true. I mean, one of the people I'm thinking of, and again, not to give away any identity, but the man was telling me that his wife was diagnosed with a pretty severe form of cancer probably about 10 years ago, and I think that's when they experienced the, quote, bed death, that he said that was the last time they actually did it. It was 10 years ago. Wow. Yeah, so, and this couple, they're only in their 50s. That's not really, again, that's midlife, right there, middle age. So to me, I'm thinking, gosh, the next, 40, 50 years, is it going to be like that? And if it was, what if the woman, in this case, couldn't do anything about it? What if she was literally, unable to, or physically unable to have that replaced? I mean, I guess that kind of question goes towards people who are asexual, who I know a couple of people that they don't need sex or they don't want it, and I don't know. I mean, is that possible for them to, experience happiness and fulfillment, especially with a partner? That's a tough question too, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a hard question. Yes, I think so. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, that all goes back to the fact that maybe in his situation, because it's so severe and, it's hard, maybe she could give him like a pass or something.
Well, yeah, because that's what my next question was going to be. I was leading up into that. Like, if that quote pass, could that be for a? Would you suggest in that case, is that where robots come in to be okay and say, okay, that your pass could be this, like a robot girlfriend, or would the pass be better off if it was actually someone else, if it was another consenting third party? Again, I think a lot of the questions are probably I'm
Yeah,
asking
I mean,
you
I
are
think
yes
it's
and no. Like they're blends of shades of gray, probably, right?
oh yeah, definitely. But I
Yeah, it's
also
case by
think that,
case. Yeah. Mhm.
yes, definitely. I think it could be either.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
more I get into this work, the more I realize, yeah, there's no set one way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And who are we to judge people's situations? There's
Sure.
so many
Mhm.
people get into marriage and they think this is it, but really, why stay in something that's miserable for like
Mhm.
100 years?
Yeah. 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 That's true because you see that, and then with couples also, if they have an let's say open relationship. And I think last time you and I chatted with Freddie, the other gentleman who
Yeah.
we only touched, we scratched the surface on this, and just for a few seconds, we see that sometimes with parties of three or and the danger I see is someone could be a third wheel because usually in a three relationship, two of them I would think just by the just common sense that they would naturally gravitate towards each other stronger than a third. So you get that third wheel. But I don't know. Maybe I'm making an unfair assumption. What do you see in that regard? Like if, for example, here's an example. If a party of three people came up to you for counseling and they wanted it to work, do you think it could work for them?
Yes, I think so. I know
Mm-hmm.
people that have done that, but
Okay.
I think it's also in terms of the fact that like these two people are actually in a committed relationship.
Yeah.
They're bringing on the other person. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? But
Mm-hmm.
they already have the established foundation of being in a committed relationship.
Yeah. And next time we have Freddie back on, we'll have to do another three panel because I'd be curious to get his take on. Does he think that it would be, let's see, the word I'm using, it would be probably more frequent with gays, let's say three guys, that it's okay to have an open relationship versus two guys and a girl or two girls and a guy? The reason why I'm wondering that, excuse me, is because I think that's a stigma that the gay population gets, right? That a lot of people perceive gays as more open and less monogamous and very free-spirited. I think that's usually what I hear and what we see in culture. I mean, that's just American culture. I don't think that's unfair to generalize that. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I guess the question to you, would heterosexual, straight relationships be, in your experience, more monogamous and committed, or do you think it just depends case by case?
Depends.
Depends. Yeah, I guess you're right because you hear about and I'll give you an example you could relate to these Hollywood celebrities that are married, and then 1 week later they get annulled or divorced all the time, and they're straight. But then on the flip side, and you have gay couples who've been together for 30, 40 years, very happy. And so I think you're right. I think there are different scenarios and situations where that could be. But this is fascinating, Haley. Like back to the whole loneliness point. And again, getting back to what we could do about proactively changing things for the better. What are some of the other advice and suggestions that you give your clients to avoid loneliness and to get out there and, like you said at the very beginning of the video blog, get out and meet people and socialize? What's other stuff that you can, I guess, tell people if they're listening right now what they can do?
Again, get out there more with people. I mean, listen,
Mm-hmm.
I'm bad about this too because,
Yep.
I have my own business, but it's so important to schedule time with girlfriends, with your
Yep.
boyfriends, with friends,
Mm-hmm.
with your family. Because at the end of the day, my sister and I were talking about this last night. That's really what matters. I mean, yes, obviously, career achievement, all that is so important,
Yeah.
but I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be the connection with other people.
I think you're right. And just to kind of piggyback on what you were just saying, I think that if you tell them healthy things to do, for example, I'm a personal trainer, and I always recommend to clients all the time hey, why isn't your girlfriend joining us? Hey, why isn't your husband here with us? Hey, bring him here. Hey, I got an idea. It's Valentine's Day. Get him a gift certificate and, buy him some sessions. That's a love gift or what have you. Or around Christmas time, I'll tell him, hey, what better gift than doing give this to your friends who are a husband and wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, bring him in and get him in and let's do a personal training group workout or whatever. And so I think that's always good. To kind of suggest, hey, let's get some activities together and get them in the gym, if nothing else, because I always meet people, and I've met so many lonely people too, and I always tell them, get in the gym. Like, you'll meet people like that, like, so easily, because people are there, let's face it, no matter what gym you choose, they're there to socialize, right? I mean, you see it, don't you? Like, whatever gym you go to, I mean, don't you usually see that people are always chatting and such and getting together and socializing? It's like the social hour for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when a lot of people tell me nowadays, the men are like, oh, I'm just so shy, it's hard.
Yep.
I also think, too, we have molded ourselves into whatever personality type we want to be. Extrovert and introvert. I mean, you can easily change that.
Very good point. Yeah. I think you're right. Like what you said, people can almost, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I'm just thinking of someone right now who, she was a client, and she told me that every weekend would come and she'd be so depressed. Every holiday that came around, she wanted to commit suicide. I mean, real serious issues. And I would always just suggest, like, hey, there's a group class or outing or whatever, or hey, this Atlanta Outdoor Club, they're doing this and that. And there'd always be an excuse, like, oh, you know what, I don't think I have the right shoes for that. Oh, well, you know what, I think I had a conflict. I was supposed to go and pick this up for a friend, blah, blah. And I'm always like, in those cases, I was like, it's not that you are, necessarily can't make these things. I think in that case, either like it was almost like she was too shy, or like you said, just too modest. In that case, always found an excuse not to go to those. So it's like you just said, it's what we become. We kind of mold ourselves into that, and I think that's, you would know better than I do on this too, because as a guy, I was always very shy. I had no confidence in high school. I didn't have a girlfriend, nothing, and I was always like just very, very shy of rejection. But I think you've told us before, but don't men generally, and gay or straight, have a greater problem than women with that? Women are just naturally more confident, I guess?
I don't know.
Or maybe women don't care about rejection as much. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I just always heard that.
Yeah, but I do think men struggle with it more. You're right.
Well,
but I also feel like men deal with rejection more. But I also feel like I always have to tell my guy friends, like, I deal with it. We all deal with it. But I also think maybe women handle it more than men.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, and men or women too. I think women are smarter than men, because when it comes to, like, for example, losing weight when they're working with me, it's always the men that always across the board come up with a universal problem, like, well, the reason I'm not losing weight is because I was born with bad genetics. Or the reason I can't lose weight is because I was born with this bone density, blah, blah, blah. The women are the ones that tell me straight up, you know what, I need to get to the gym more, it's my own fault. Or, you know what, if I wasn't eating the way I am, or if I was making a commitment and doing it this way, I could lose the weight. I'm not trying to generalize that, but it really is true. Women take greater responsibility. I mean, I see it as a personal trainer of 20 years, so I'm just telling you objectively what I see, and it's amazing, but there's something there.
Don't you think that's also because of the fact that women, we are naturally, we have to do that because I've got the kids, I've got...
More resourceful. I think that's why. I think that's part of it. I think women... No question about in my mind, women have a greater threshold of pain, higher tolerance of pain, because just of natural birth, rearing and such. Men, and I'm saying that as a guy. I'm not trying to stereotype or prejudge, but I can just tell you, there's no question about it at all. I mean, that's definitely. I think you're right. I think that all comes to kind of the way we're genetically made up and biologically predisposed, but. Again, you've given us some really good advice, but the people, whether they're men or women, if they are getting, say, depressed or even, worst case, suicidal, what are some of the red flags or some of the cautionary signs we need to look out for to help people if we see any of that?
Like they haven't left their house in weeks?
That's a good, yeah.
Out there. Well, listen, I've been there before where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so lonely, no one understands. But the thing is you really have to work on your thoughts. Like, I want people that are listening to look up Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
His work is basically changing the world.
Mm-hmm.
I read the book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Okay.
Because think of your highest version. I always tell men and women this, like, this person isn't lonely. And so you have to really rewire your thoughts and constantly say, the version of me that I'm becoming, she doesn't act that way.
I like that.
Let's
That's good.
And let's get out of this. Let's go. Because you have to get out of the cycle of the negative momentum.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's empowering. That we all have the power to do that, don't we?
Yes.
That's the good news. That's great. Wow, that's really terrific. Well, Haley, again, always great to have you on here. This has been fascinating and so much fun, and always within half an hour I learned so much from you, and it's really great to go back and forth and kind of just get really good ideas from you, and you've given some terrific tips and suggestions. So before we wrap up, though, just wanted to ask you a couple more things. What do you have going on for the rest of this year? As we close in on the holidays, what are some of the plans? Do you have any events coming up? And also, let's make sure to plug your contact information, too. We can't forget about that as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so I'm currently promoting my 3-month program. So that's about self-love, sacred sexuality, mindset.
Yep.
And really just becoming the woman or the man that you desire to be to attract the partner that you really want.
Love
because we all have an amazing relationship, but that starts with you.
That's good. It all ties back to you, like you said. It's full circle. That's excellent. And since I last talked to you, Haley, too, you had gotten a new email address, and also I think your website's new, also, wasn't it? Because I didn't think.
No, my Instagram was. Well, my company now is Your Guide to Love.
That's what I was going to ask you. That was my next question. Yep, I like that. That's really good.
Thank you. I switched here from Holistic Health with Haley because that was mainly health focused.
Oh, okay.
Guide to Love is really symbolic of everything that I'm focusing on now.
Perfect. Okay, good. And so tell us, please, just so we make sure we have it on the screen correctly, the website and your contact information, please.
Okay, the website is still the same. I haven't changed it yet, but my email is helvestonhaley@gmail.com.
And then the name of your Instagram one more time, please.
It's Helveston. No, what is it? I think it's Haley Helveston.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, just want to make sure we had that right. Either way, we'll make sure we put it on the screen here correctly so everyone's got it. Good, perfect. All right, Haley. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining me on such an early notice here. For the people who aren't watching, we're actually recording this really early on a Saturday morning especially. And like you said before we were recording, I admire you so much because you're a true business person and entrepreneur because, again, I admire you getting up so early and recording this with me. And people who get up early, especially on a Saturday like this, no excuses. You're definitely determined, and you're doing. That's why you're doing so well and very successful. So I admire you, Haley, as a businesswoman, and keep up the great work. You're just doing so tremendously.
Thank you. Definitely, it's been fun.
My pleasure, always is. Well, Haley, let's do this again, please. Next month, let's get you back on, and enjoy the rest of your September, and happy fall season to you as well.
Yes, sounds great.
All right, thank you, Haley, and here comes her contact information right now. We'll see everybody.